Well, hello, everyone. Hello, friends. This is Dr. Turner with another episode of Manna. So excited today to be sharing some time with Kevin Monroe. I'll introduce him further in just a second, but good afternoon, Kevin, and welcome to the show. So glad you're here, brother.
Well, Michael, thank you. It's morning for you, so good morning. And hey, you Manna listeners, whatever time of day it is when you are listening, I want to say thank you for listening and for giving Dr. Turner and me the opportunity to just kind of share part of your day and hopefully deposit a little manna into your life.
Absolutely. That's what we aim to do. We call it manna as in nourishment for body and soul. It's a biblical story and a biblical metaphor for God's provision for us on a daily basis. And it's a lovely concept. I just love the idea that everything's in balance in the world. If you look around, there's just enough uh,
Mm.
sun to balance off the amount of water, to balance off the cycle of the water and the wind, and just enough, bugs to degrade the leaves that fall off the trees, et cetera. There's this finely tuned balance, right? And then what's emotional for me is I look at a picture of Earth just hanging in space, and all around it for miles and millions of miles, there's nothing but blackness. That there's this little cloud, this little dot with blue sky
Mm.
and blue water and clouds swirling and life just bubbling and brimming in just the right balance.
And
And
just the right
so
amount.
here we
Yeah.
are, and everything is just so that we can be alive today and have an awareness that we're alive and have an enjoyment of being alive. And
Mm.
that's just something it's a marvel every day if you want to think about it. So hopefully today I'm grateful to be alive and grateful to have this moment. I know Kevin is too, and we're trying to share and deposit something in your lives today that'll be uplifting for your mind and your spirit. That's our
Mm.
goal. Yes. Well, I'm blessed and very honored, excited to have Kevin. Kevin and I met, several months ago at this point through a mutual introduction from Jeff, who's the CEO and creator of a software program called My Challenge Creator, which is an app to help deliver challenges of different sorts to thought leaders and influencers and experts like Kevin as he tries to reach his audience. So it was a timely introduction. I greatly enjoyed it. And Kevin was expertly using the software and then told me some of the ways in which he was doing it as related to gratitude challenges. So I became very intrigued and wanted to pursue this further. Let me introduce Kevin in a formal way to our audience and we'll jump right in it. So this is from his bio. Kevin Monroe is the preeminent expert on the transformative power of gratitude in the workplace. He has worked with the world's most respected companies and organizations across the globe, like Amazon Web Services, Pfizer, Disney University, and the UK's National Health Services to foster cultures of appreciation and drive employee engagement. With a master's degree in organizational leadership from Gonzaga University, go Zags,
Those eggs.
exactly, and over 25 years consulting corporations, Kevin is widely regarded by executives, HR professionals, and leadership development experts. A popular keynote speaker and facilitator, Kevin's insights have been featured on leadership and business podcasts in the United States, Canada, UK, India, and Australia. So all over the English-speaking Commonwealth there. I'm impressed. You covered about every time zone, I think, on planet Earth there. Um, as a workplace gratitude consultant, he helps organizations struggling with top talent departures or employee disengagement by offering renewed motivation, retention, and performance. So, Kevin, welcome. We're, excited for this conversation. Fantastic. Let's jump in with this. I see in the last paragraph of this bio, it says you're a workplace gratitude consultant. That's an interesting phrase. I didn't know that such a field existed, frankly. I've never heard that phrase prior to meeting you today, which is fantastic. So tell me about that. And in a sense, my question is, whose problems do you solve? What are those problems and how do you solve them?
Okay, I'll see if I can remember all three of those.
Yeah.
And it's a joy to be with you. It is such a joy. And Dr. Turner, one of the things that I just love is how interconnected our world is. And in all of those countries that you mentioned, I've been on podcasts, there's one theme. It's the same theme that allowed you and I to meet, that has allowed me to meet all of these other people. It's relationships. You meet somebody, and that somebody you're in conversation, and that somebody all of a sudden goes, "Oh, you need to know my friend," and they introduce you, right? Just like Jeff introduced us. I still remember that email. I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks for introducing me." Jeff, and then you and I jumped on a call. That's how the world works, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
one way I say it is nobody knows everybody you need to know,
Mm.
but everybody you know knows somebody you need to know. And when
Mm-hmm.
people just open up out of the kindness of their hearts, their Rolodex is what we used to call it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if anybody has a physical Rolodex anymore, but people
Mm-hmm.
start making introductions and doors open. And that's
Mm.
literally how I've had this privilege. Um, Workplace gratitude consultant. There may be a few others that use that title, not many, right? Another title that people gave me, I didn't come up with this, but about a year and a half ago, people started calling me the world's gratitude coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And the very first time it came up in a podcast conversation, Dr. Turner, a guy said, "So you're the world's best gratitude coach." And I'm like, no, 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 no. There is no adjective in there. It's not a thing of rank, right? We're not saying best or greatest. It's just I work with people around the world to grow gratitude. And I really struggled when that bio, I didn't write that bio that you read because I couldn't write that bio. It's really hard to write about yourself. Someone on our team or a coach actually wrote that bio through working with me. Um, and I struggled to be called an expert because I'm not an academician, right? I don't have all of the neuroscience, but I have come to understand I do have a very unique expertise. And when people started saying this back to me, I'm like, well, you're right. You're right. 5 years ago, that's not true. 4 years ago, I started hosting events to get people to experience gratitude because I landed on this idea about 4+ years ago that gratitude experienced is better than gratitude explained.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me explain that. When I first started diving into gratitude, and we can talk about that a little later, the personal journey, but it was 5 years ago this month when we hosted our first event open to the public. July 8th, 2019, we launched a 10-day gratitude challenge, just inviting people to join us and to begin expressing gratitude. And we created environments for people to experience and express gratitude. And what I understood when I looked around the world, what was happening is there were a lot of uh, professors, a lot of PhDs who were going into companies and lecturing about the benefits of gratitude and what happens in your brain and in your body and the release of hormones and oxytocin, right? These things that are really important to know, but you don't have to know it to experience it. And I would sit in some of these lectures, and at the end of the lecture, I'd sit there and think, well, I should practice more gratitude in my life, right? I should practice more gratitude. And then one day somebody invited me to do something, and they invited me to come and deliver a lecture. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be the person delivering lectures. They said, what will you do? And I said, I don't know. Give me a couple of weeks. Now, Dr. Turner, one of the things I love that this is Manna. I am a person of faith, right? And I pray daily and look to the Holy Spirit for guidance in my life. And I'm on a walk one morning, and all of a sudden, boom. And there was a name for it. Let's call this a gratitude encounter. And let's create a space that we invite people into. And I had these three words: to explore, express, and experience gratitude, right? Not to come hear it talked about, not to have
Mm-hmm.
someone tell you you should be grateful. And if you are grateful, here's what happens. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
what if we created an
Mm-hmm.
environment where people actually experience gratitude real
Mm-hmm.
time in the moment? And then
Mm-hmm.
what if we get people to express gratitude?
Sure.
And so that's what we do in our work. And it's crazy how this has spread. And so the companies you've listed, I've hosted gratitude encounters, gone into those organizations where we've hosted encounters for many of these organizations. And we structure these encounters very specifically for the organization. Like Pfizer is one that you mentioned. Pfizer actually has a corporate value of joy.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of their listed values. And they had this event called Joy Week. And they asked me, would I come and do something around gratitude? So we did a gratitude encounter based on joy. And we
Mm-hmm.
invited people to share with their colleagues where they found joy in their work.
Okay.
And then we had a round of, and there were fascinating conversations. We break people into small groups and they have these conversations. They come back and then they express gratitude for those things. The second round of conversations was, where do you find joy outside of work?
Mm-hmm.
And people got to learn more about their colleagues than they'd ever learned in anything else. And when we started doing the evaluations that day, I was blown away when people started writing best team building event ever. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of
Wow.
this as team building, right? But
Right.
it's just, how do we get people to express gratitude and to experience it?
Right.
And
Well, sorry to jump in there, but you got me
no,
my wheel spin. This is a fantastic concept. How about this? What if we did a mini gratitude encounter right now for our listeners? Is there a way to do
yeah.
that? What would that look like? What kind of questions do you ask them? And maybe everyone listening we can have a gratitude encounter here to
Okay.
explore, express, etc.
All right. So 5 years ago, when we launched the Gratitude Challenge, we started creating innovative ways to get people to think about gratitude, right? Because prior to this, for years in my life, Dr. Turner, like 20 something years ago, I had a mentor who taught us and said, hey, before your feet hit the floor when you get out of bed in the morning, think of 3 things you're thankful for. Now, for years, I did this, but after 2018, I came to realize I might have been cheating the process a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I usually recycled the same 3 things every single day.
Mm.
Wake up, what are you grateful for, right? And being a man over 50, I'm ready to go to the bathroom first thing when I wake up. So I'm not going to lay there for 10 minutes, right? Thinking, I'm like, oh, my wife, our kids are home. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
done. And if you'd have asked me back then, are you grateful? I'm like, well, sure. I think of 3 things I'm grateful for every morning, but I was doing the same 3 things. So we wanted to do something different. So I'm looking for, and then, okay, so I'll back up. Sorry for a deviation here, but June 17th, 2019, in my morning prayer time, this is how all of the work started. I heard these 4 words: host a gratitude challenge. That's what I heard. It was a question. And so
Mm-hmm.
we responded to that inspiration. I called 2 friends and we hosted our first gratitude challenge. 2 days later, on June 19th, in my morning prayer time, I got this impression. There's an artist who will join you and create original artwork for the gratitude challenge. I'm like, well, that's interesting, but I don't know any artist. So, Dr. Turner, I ended up writing a tweet and just posting a tweet. And I
Mm-hmm.
still have the screenshot of that tweet. I had the presence
Mm-hmm.
of mind to clip it a couple of weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering, is there any artist willing to contribute original artwork to a gratitude challenge? Can be
Mm-hmm.
hand drawn or computer generated. Uh, Reply or DM if interested. I just put it out there, let it go. 8 hours later, a friend of mine in the United Kingdom reads this tweet and retweets it, and we connect with an artist. And
Mm-hmm.
that artist, her name is Kat Hayes, she said, what are you looking for? And I told her, well, we're looking for, some unique prompts. And she goes, well, what if I create 11 images? I'm like, okay, what do you mean? One overall campaign image and one for each of the 10 days. So I'm going to show you,
Mm-hmm.
um, here, we'll have fun with these 2, maybe a third, but this was one. So, listener, right now, if you're listening and if you're watching, you don't have to watch the video, but if you're on the video, I'm holding up a card, and on the front is the picture of a clock, and it simply says the last hour challenge. The last hour challenge. So, Dr. Turner, look
Mm-hmm.
back at the last 60 minutes of your life. What's something that you experienced or enjoyed in the last hour that you'd like to express gratitude for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I just got done swimming laps at my neighborhood pool outdoors, and just the feeling of moving through the water, just breathing, moving fluidly through the water, feeling the sun strike my face, my back, seeing the rays of sun reflecting off the pool, feeling my body being alive and moving fluidly in that manner. It was a joy.
Okay. I mean, look, when I hear that, I see thread after thread after thread that we could pull, right? And go deeper on that. Oh, you live in a neighborhood that has a pool. That
Mm-hmm.
is a real blessing in life. Oh, the
Mm-hmm.
pool was full of water. The water was at a temperature that was comfortable to get in and swim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's convenient for you to drive there. You experience the sunshine. And you
Mm-hmm.
also talked about feelings in your body as you move through I mean, there's just so much there,
Right.
right? So for me, if I were to, I'll think back. It's noon. It's midday for me, and I had the privilege of 30 minutes ago or 45 minutes ago sitting down to have lunch with my wife. I don't get to do that a lot, but she was home today, and so we enjoyed lunch together before I came to join you on this conversation. That's something I really appreciate, right? So you listening, just think back over the last hour, what is something that you're grateful for? And when we would share this in a challenge platform, Michael, I remember writing some of this. Okay. And if you just woke up and you go, I just woke up, I don't really have anything to be grateful for. I'm kind of like, really? You
Mm-hmm.
woke up? Not everybody woke up today. You woke up. There's one. Oh, you were asleep? Were you in a bed? Was your bed in a home? Right? You have air conditioning or heating, depending on where and what time of year. What about that as a blessing? Were you
Mm-hmm.
fearful for your life while you slept? Many people in many parts of the world are, right? I mean, we can take
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
We can take anything and use it as a launching pad
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
find things to be grateful for.
Mm. Mm. I see. Absolutely. What do you feel that that's the antidote for, right? What's the opposite of sitting back and recognizing, appreciating gratitude like this? Or to think of it another way, what's the problem that's solved as people would reflect consciously? What am I thankful for today? What am I thankful for in the last hour? You know, how
So
do you
there are
see
a
that?
couple, but I love that you asked that question. Um, and maybe a couple of years ago, I would have thought about this differently, but I've been asked it. We've had enough conversations in the last year that I've come to where I now believe the opposite of grateful is not ungrateful. The opposite of grateful is entitled.
Mm, okay. Say
Right?
that again for everybody. Yeah.
If you are entitled to something, you've deserved it. You've earned it. There is no reason in your
Mm-hmm.
mind to be grateful for something that
Mm,
you've earned, right? So I love this definition of gratitude. There are two I use. Uh, one of them is gratitude is appreciation for all that we have, all that we are, and thankfulness for our ability to show loving kindness to others. And that comes from my friend Patty Blackstaff in her journal. It's not all strawberries and cream, but there's some wonderful moments. So, probably for the
mm-hmm.
first 50 something years of my life, Dr. Turner, I thought of gratitude as simply that first line thankfulness for stuff, the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
blessings.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we expand our understanding of gratitude and we begin to think about being grateful for who we are? Now, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about you, I know about me. And
Mm-hmm.
I've learned this about me largely through my family, through some friends. I'm a pretty quirky fella, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some weird, we all have our idiosyncrasies.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
all have things that we it seems normal to us, but it's just a little weird the way we process. And for years, I was called weird. And then I finally learned I'm not weird. I'm just wired differently. And weird and wired have the same letters in them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
realized I'm wired. I'm wired on purpose. I have a unique, quirky personality. There are things that when I was a teenager, I saw in my dad, and I was embarrassed about those in my dad.
Mm-hmm.
The way he connected with people, how we'd be in a restaurant and we couldn't get out of the restaurant because he's stopping and talking to everybody he knew in the restaurant.
Right.
Well, now I'm that guy, right? I'm that guy
Mhm.
that'll strike up a conversation with anybody. I'm that guy that wants to connect and engage with people. I'm like, oh, that's a good quality to have. But when I was
Mm.
a teenager, I was embarrassed by that, ashamed of that. But what if, and I know we have some people in this, in the Manna podcast listening world that have health challenges. And, you know, can we be grateful, not necessarily for the health challenge, but what you learn, how you grow, how you adapt, the kindness of others that you receive when you're
Mhm.
navigating a health challenge? I
Mhm.
mean, those are things you go, wow, I, I,
Yeah.
I I'm grateful for this because I got to receive kindness from others.
Wow, that's a great point, Kevin. That's making me recall a few years back. I had a pretty significant back injury. I was lifting some really heavy weights in the gym and not paying attention to what I was doing. And I tore a disc and had a
Mm.
severe pinched nerve in my left leg to the point that I couldn't walk. I was limping, terrible pain. It felt like someone hit me with a hatchet and just buried the hatchet in the middle of my spine and left it there and walked away. And so I couldn't stand up straight and I had severe pain. My leg was weak, etc. Fast forward about 10 days later, I'm in my friend, the neurosurgeon's office, and then in the operating room getting surgery. And I asked him, I said, Matt, what did people do? Like, when did neurosurgery become a viable concept to fix a problem like this? And what did people do at what point in history, or recent or past, did otherwise? What was the turning point here? It's like, well, neurosurgical techniques started roughly, in the 30s, and then they advanced a little bit and this and that. So I basically realized, if I were alive 100 years ago, I'd just be living in this debilitated state where I couldn't walk and I couldn't get out of bed, and I'd have a hatchet buried in my back
Mm.
for, I don't know, months, and maybe have permanent weakness in my leg, and not to mention be thankful for a bit of pain medicine and such. And so though I had that challenge, I was overwhelmed at the opportunities through some of the technology and the giftedness that my friend Matt, who had studied and cultivated this expertise to be in my back and perform life-altering surgery,
Mm.
on so many levels. And then,
Amazing.
yeah, 10 days later, I'm having surgery. The day after that, I'm basically pain free. The day after that, I'm back in the gym in a gentle way. I was in the pool and I was in the sauna just stretching, instead of suffering 100 years ago with no pain medicine, lying in a corner,
Right.
and no surgical option to get better until God knows when,
Oh, okay, so when you say this 100 years ago, I mean, can
Yeah.
we just pause and go, hey, if you are listening to this podcast,
Hmm.
you are living a life greater than what royalty experienced 100 years ago, right?
Hmm.
Royalty didn't even have it as good as we do now. All of the
Hmm.
privileges, all of the access to luxuries of life. I mean, you have a phone, you have a computer, you have whatever, you have connections to
Hmm.
technology. You
Hmm.
you have some choice of time, what to do with your time. You have
Hmm.
enough luxury time that you're choosing to listen to a podcast. I mean, those are just, we can go so many levels. But before I forget this point, you asked me, what does this address? Let me talk about you asked workplace.
Yeah.
Okay. In today's workplace, William James, who is credited as the father of American psychology, he recognized that the craving, that the deepest principle of human nature is the craving to be appreciated,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
That
Okay.
people want, and the way I say that is people want to feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated.
Mhm.
And in most of the workplaces, and Gallup just released a study 2 days ago that said in the United States, 50% of the workforce is either open to work or actively seeking new jobs, right?
Mm.
Half of the people that are employed in jobs in the United States are ready to go somewhere else.
Mm. Mm.
Why is that? One of the reasons is they don't feel, and feel is the key word. They don't feel seen, heard, valued, or appreciated for their contributions. what do they feel? They feel overlooked, or they feel neglected, or they feel taken advantage of. And when we do this in the workplace, what we are helping leaders understand is you have at your disposal a resource that costs you nothing to
Mhm.
use,
Mhm. Mhm.
but makes a world of difference to the people that work for you. And
Mhm.
that's to say, hey, I see you, right? I saw what you did on that project. I saw what you did with that customer. I saw how you handled that
Mhm.
irate client.
Mhm.
I heard the empathy in your voice, or I saw the creativity that you used.
Yeah.
And wow, I appreciate that, right? High five, or maybe you write them a note, or you send them a text, send them an email. That kind of appreciation in the workplace causes people to flourish in their jobs, and
Mm.
it causes people to want to stay there longer and do their best for that employer.
Mm. I could see that. Absolutely. Many of our listeners are probably not business
Yep.
owners nor necessarily in management oversight positions. How could we apply this in our personal lives? Let's say as wives,
Okay.
husbands,
Oh,
parents,
um,
friends.
hmm. How many divorces happen because a husband or a wife doesn't feel seen, heard, valued, appreciated, and loved by their partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with your children, right? What if, so I have a friend, his name's Joseph, father of three boys. And this was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago when this happened. So he had a newborn that was under a year old. The middle son was two and a half. And one day we're in a Zoom, both of us from home, and his son is just at the door, banging on the door, banging on the door. And I can hear it some. And then he comes in and he's, you know, loud and wanting attention. And Joseph turns to his son and looks at him, and he says to me about his son, he says, I so appreciate his persistence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I start laughing
Mm-hmm.
because, Michael, at that moment, I wasn't thinking about this as a positive character trait. I'm thinking he's having a fit, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
we can look at things and
Right.
go, okay, they're two, you can either view the world, right, through
Indeed.
the lens of lack, which is saying he's interrupting my work, or saying, gosh, there's something he needs and he's persistent about getting this
Mm.
addressed. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to applaud my son for his persistence. And I was just like, wow, there's a
Wow.
reframe. There's a reframe. So
Right.
what if as parents we affirm our children for the positive side of the character trait we may see? And what if before we overreact or before we criticize, what if we are genuinely grateful? Okay, so
Mm.
let me go a little further. Viktor Frankl, who wrote the classic book Man's Search for Meaning, he was imprisoned in concentration camps. He was a Jew, and he was imprisoned by the Nazis. During his internment, his parents were killed, his wife was killed, everything was taken from him. But he wrote
Yeah.
this classic book, Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a moment. And in that moment, we have the freedom to choose how to respond in and how we respond dictates our freedom and our growth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So something happens in life
Mm-hmm.
that's a stimulus, whatever that is. It seeks to provoke you, and you have programmed ways that you respond. The way we teach gratitude, and here's a simple triangle. We
Mm-hmm.
teach gratitude as pause, notice, express. Pause, notice, express.
Mm.
So In the introduction, you talked about AWS, Amazon Web Services. A couple of years ago, I was approached. I'd done some work with Amazon. I was approached by JC, the gentleman I've done most of my work for there. And he says, Kevin, we're wanting to grow the emotional intelligence of our leaders, right? We
Mhm.
hired the smartest people in the industry, but we want to increase their emotional intelligence. How can you help us with that? So I had done some work, came up with all this. And it's funny. I remember it was a little later than this in the year. It was like August, maybe September, and I was out cutting grass in the
Mhm.
backyard. And I remember the spot I was at, and all of a sudden that quote from Viktor Frankl was in my mind.
Mhm.
Between stimulus and response, there's a space, right? So as a parent, as a husband, as a wife, as a
Mhm.
partner, right? Your
Mhm.
partner does something, or your
Mhm.
child
Yes.
does something, and you are agitated. What if in that moment between the stimulus they did that agitated you, you insert the pause, and you pause, if only for a moment, and you go, okay, is there another way to interpret what's going on here? So if you insert a pause, you've
Mhm.
expanded the space.
Mhm.
Even if this is a nanosecond, or it's, I'm not talking about a long time, but it's happening fast. But you've added a pause. And in that pause, you're now thinking there's other ways I can respond. I
Mhm.
don't have to respond the way I always saw my mom or my dad respond. Now,
Right.
if we go a little further, what if in that pause we also insert gratitude in that space, which is what Joseph did? I'm grateful for my son's persistence. Now,
Mm.
all of a sudden, he has more options of how to respond to that fit
Yes.
is what I would wanted to label that. My son's having a fit, right? He needs to
Right.
be disciplined. No. So here's how gratitude helps. Whatever the relationship, we can pause, take a breath.
Mhm.
And then what am I grateful for about this person, about this situation? How can I see what's happening in a positive light? And can I respond differently?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that has nothing to do, we can do that at work. We can do that at home. You can do this in the neighborhood, at the playground. When
Yes.
somebody does something to your child on the playground, and you as a parent, you're about to get into it with that other mom. Did you
Mhm.
see what you're right? What if you just pause? And then what if you go, wow, I'm grateful that we live in a country where we have playgrounds.
Mhm.
And you just expand your emotional toolbox of how you can respond.
Yes. Yes. That idea, you mentioned the quote from Viktor Frankl. I first heard about that in one of the Stephen Covey books, actually. I think that's where I came across it. It might have been the Seven Habits of Highly
It
Effective
probably
People.
was. Probably
Yeah.
was.
But between the stimulus and the response, there's a pause. This is how I heard it. Yeah. And in that pause lies our opportunity to choose our response. And in those choices lie our growth and happiness.
Yeah.
That's as I recall that. And I remember really starting to try to put that into action. Um, you know, a lot of our responses they're chosen, but we've been choosing them in such a way so fast that we're just blowing over them and they become reflexive. So we have to reclaim that pause, right? And think about, as you said, maybe I want to react a little differently than my mom or dad or my previous boss who used to just yell at people or get frustrated easily, etc. We need to slow down, take a pause, realize we have a choice there. I'm also motivated by a quote from Abraham Lincoln that says, I reckon most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be, right? Gets at the same
True.
concept. That we actually can choose our response to something. And on this idea of reframing, it's so helpful. You can think of it as a personal growth challenge. How difficult, how challenging, how potentially overwhelming and angst provoking a scenario can you take and pause and reframe it possibly to have an emotionally overcoming and healthy response, right? Like you
Yeah.
can slowly grow in this, but you can look at it as a challenge. I remember hearing one time somebody says, even if someone's arguing with you, you can reframe that, right? And you can think of that person arguing with you as, hey, they actually just really care about you and want you to be right on this issue. On some level, they really deeply care that you would be right, right, as they see it on this issue. Which there's some truth to that. If you get an argument with your spouse, they really deeply care about you and want you to be right as they see that problem, right? Versus just completely ignoring you, versus indifference. So you could
And
view right, you could view someone arguing with you as a friend who's trying to help you see something differently, and maybe there's a possibility for you to take even a sliver of growth from that, right? Versus callous indifference to let you just go your way.
yeah, yeah. So, we have that moment. And if we
Mm-hmm.
pause in that moment and we say, well, what is the good here? Oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
people of faith may be familiar with Paul's list in Philippians 4. Think on these things, right? Whatever is good,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, pure, holy, right? When you look at a situation, it's easy to see what's wrong here. What if we
Mm-hmm.
can say what's right here? What's good here? What's lovely here? What might a motivation this what motivation might this person have
Mm-hmm.
other than wanting to harm me
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
other than wanting to disagree with me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those things. And it gives us, it puts us back in the driver's seat and helping us realize, oh, we have a choice to make here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be hooked by those patterns of responses that we've learned from other leaders, parents, or whoever that
Yes.
was. We don't have to do it that way. We can choose to be different. And
Mm.
gratitude helps us, right? Gratitude is a muscle. And the
Yes.
more we practice that muscle, the greater it grows. My friend JC from AWS, we were talking about resilience one day, and he's a big fitness guy. And he said, I realized that gratitude is to resilience, emotional resilience, what exercise is to health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? If we want to be resilient people, if we want to be emotionally strong people, we need to practice gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see the point. Yeah, Kevin, I'm loving this concept here. It's resonating quite a lot. There's a quote that also comes to mind. I remember I heard this in a sermon a number of years ago. It was so powerful on the lines of reframing. This is from Matthew Henry, who's a famous Christian writer, wrote a commentary on the Bible, I believe,
Yep, he did.
several hundred years ago. But this was his diary. He was robbed. Okay, he was physically assaulted and robbed. And this was his diary after he was robbed and his prayer and conversation with God. He says, God, I thank thee first because I was never robbed before.
Yeah.
Second, because although they took my purse, they did not take my life.
Mm.
Third, although they took my all, it was not much. And fourth, because it was I who was robbed and not I who robbed.
Wow. So, I mean, there's a very difficult situation in life that Matthew Henry completely reframed.
Right. Yes. He found four reasons to thank God and be grateful in his journal. It's powerful. It makes my hair stand up practically, and especially the end, it was because I who was robbed and not I who robbed. In other words, I'm thankful for your grace, Lord, your transforming power in my life. I could have been that person living in an animalistic, desperate state of, antagonism towards my fellow man, but I'm not.
Or in dire
That's amazing.
circumstances that I felt I had no other option to get what I
Yes.
needed than take it from someone.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Um, mm,
I want to share one other quote and story too that hit me very, very hard. I read this in National Geographic. This is a National Geographic article, probably, I don't know, over 10 years ago at this point. And the story, the vignette that's presented here is so powerful to me about gratitude, about difficult circumstances, about resiliency. I just want to share it and read it, kind of put it on the record here. And this really resonated, by the way. I was in high school. I lived in the Dominican Republic as an exchange student. And when I was there, I saw people in hardship, and including out in the streets, selling trinkets and selling peanuts, and street children offering to shine shoes, and people just hustling out in the streets, even some beggars just milling around in the sun and the heat and the humidity. And I'm sitting in my air conditioned car getting driven to private school. I'm 16 years old, and I look out my window and there's a kid staring at me in the face with a raggedy shirt on with his hand out, asking for money or offering to wash the window of the car quickly for some spare change. So these vignettes were eye-opening for me, shocking, very emotionally engaging. So when I was in the Dominican Republic, I then related so strongly to the article I read here in National Geographic. So I'll just read this to you and to our listeners, and then we'll discuss that and maybe end on this point here. So this is the article, and here are the quotes. This is the reporter's in Lagos, Nigeria, and he observes a young man selling dog leashes on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria. Okay, and this is what he says. I stopped one day towards noon at an intersection. A young man with a black t-shirt was standing between the median strip and a lane of cars, holding out a fistful of dog leashes. His name was John Cheku, he said, and he came from Edo State, about 200 miles east of Lagos. I've been doing this for 7 years, he said, keeping an eye out for some sign from a driver. I couldn't even remember having seen a dog in Lagos. I might sell 6 leashes a day for $1.25 each. I don't make much profit. He didn't make enough to send money home in any case. The sun was beginning to hurt. He turned his green visor around to shade his eyes. 2 lanes of cars rolled past. The fumes and heat were painful. No dog owners so far. I always work this intersection, he said. I don't know how to put it. We don't have much money in our situation. It was awkward, but it was better than saying, I came because I'm broke. I came by myself. I don't want to involve myself in any bad gang, and that's why I'm doing this. I would like to be a musician on the stage to entertain people. I stayed with him a half an hour, and he didn't sell a single leash. I asked him if he gets discouraged. Now, here's the punchline, Kevin. The reporter asks him if he gets discouraged in all those situations and all that he just talked about. I asked him if he gets discouraged, and here's his answer. No, I don't get discouraged, John Cheku said, because I know that God is life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how can a guy, you know, fleeing 200 miles from a home, eking out a living in the hot sun in the middle of the smog and fumes and heat, selling dog leashes for $1.25, maybe selling 6 leashes a day, barely having enough to get on, can't send money home, and with apparently unrealized dreams of actually being a musician, and he doesn't get discouraged because he knows something. I mean, wow. So I'm still trying to figure out what his answer means and what it represents, because that's some powerful mental medicine. You talk about emotional resilience.
Yeah.
If you can have in mind what John Cheku had in mind when he answered the reporter's question, then you're onto something pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I'd
All right,
say.
so let me spin that.
Yeah.
There's a line, it's from my favorite movie. It's a Wonderful Life. I watch it every year at Christmas, sometimes before Christmas. Right?
Yeah.
It's that movie made in the 1940s. It opens with, I can't imagine how they'd make this today, but you see stars twinkling, and you just hear voices, right? And you hear people shouting up prayers for one George Bailey. God, help my son George Bailey. He's in a really tough place. Help my friend George Bailey. And then God says to this bumbling angel, Clarence, if you know the story, there's a man on earth in trouble tonight. And Clarence goes, what? Is he sick? And God says, no, worse. He's discouraged.
Yes.
And he's about to throw away God's greatest gift. And the original story that It's a Wonderful Life is based on is called God's Greatest Gift, and it's the gift of life. And he was considering ending his life, right? So, but that whole idea, man, there's nothing worse than being discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever hope he had, I'm inspired that in the direst of situations and circumstances, he still had hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so let's hope grows in gratitude. I heard this said a few years ago. I didn't hear it said, heard it said that way. I saw a slide um, that said hope is cultivated in the soil of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Hope is cultivated. I just shorten that and say hope grows in gratitude, right? If you are struggling with hope, find something to be grateful for now. Find something. So I do all kinds of programs getting people to express gratitude. January 1st of this year, January 1st, 2024, Mariel from the Philippines posted that she was so excited to start her second year. She had just finished 1 year of expressing gratitude every day. She's excited for a new year. To which I said, Mariel, I want to ask you something. After having expressed gratitude every day for a year, what are you noticing? Right? Pause, notice, express. That's what we talk about. What are you noticing? The primary thing I've noticed is how much more there is to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? When we start being grateful, you may have never tried gratitude, and you may be at a very difficult place, and you may be able to only come up with one thing, one remote thing, and it seems like a stretch to be grateful for that. Be grateful for that. And then try
Yeah.
it again later. Try it again. And maybe you'll experience what Mariel did after a year of doing it. Oh my gosh, there are things everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you and I talked earlier, your journey to the pool and all of the things that are connected to that. Here's another
Mm-hmm.
one that we use sometimes. We'll do this one real quick. We don't have to go into it, but I mean, we called it the all who touched this. So if you're drinking a cup of coffee, if you're drinking a cup of tea, I mean, what
Mm-hmm.
if you just pause for a moment and think about everybody that was
Mm-hmm.
involved in that whole journey
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of making a cup of coffee possible for you this morning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? There's the farmer that planted the coffee plant.
Mm-hmm.
There's the person that watered it. There's the person that picked the beans. There's the person that spread out the beans and let them dry. They're the people that
Mm-hmm.
loaded them into sacks. They're people that
Mm-hmm.
loaded the sacks onto the
Mm-hmm.
truck. The truck driver that drove it to the seaport, the people that loaded it onto the ocean carrier, all the people that were on
Mm-hmm.
the ship that transported it across the ocean, the people that unloaded it when it got to your country, the people who transported it to the local roastery, the people at the roastery that then, right? I mean, you see how this can go.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
There are hundreds of people
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
were
Yes.
involved in that journey of
Yes.
making that one cup of coffee possible.
Yes.
And we can be grateful for all of that.
Absolutely. Yes, we can. We can. Thank you for bringing that to light. Reminds me, there was a poster I saw. It was meant to be a bit of a reproach and a bit of sort of tongue in cheek. But on one side of the poster was this American family, white kind of upper class family sitting down at this beautiful Thanksgiving table that's overflowing with food. And and they're offering up a prayer, and it says something like, "Thank you, God, for this food." And then on the other side is a picture of a hardworking migrant farm worker bent over in the sun picking something, and he's like, "You're welcome," or something like that. And the idea is we don't often think and connect, right? As you're saying, there's people who actually physically bent over in three-dimensional time and space and worked hard and did something here, and we don't understand all that many times, and we thank God as we should, but how about thanking, the people and realizing there's a bunch of
Yeah,
human beings that God used to provide that thing and get it there to us in the final analysis as well. Yeah, it makes me
it's
think of that
amazing.
poster. Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Well, phenomenal. Kevin, let's end on this. I know there are going to be some people who want to take some steps to calls to action, let's say, making a resolution, doing something differently in their lives starting today, thinking about life in a different way, reframing something, expressing gratitude towards a spouse, a child, something like that. Can you give our listeners some option to move forward? Is there any suggestion or perhaps, even program or challenge that you're about to do that people might be able to participate in as they want to move forward with this idea?
thanks for asking. And there are two that I will offer. One of these, if you hear this the moment it's released, you can join us. We are doing this thing all July long called Don't Wait to Thank. Don't
Mm,
Wait to Thank. And you can just go to don'twaittothank.com and get more information. But what we're asking people to do everywhere is express gratitude to at least one person a day, every day in July. Right? That's
mm-hmm,
all it is just express
mm,
gratitude to a person. That's Don't Wait to Thank. Let me read something and talk about manna. This is manna. I got this um, message delivered to me online 2 hours ago. The Don't Wait to Thank challenge has been truly transformative for me, and I invite everyone to join. It has pushed me to be more intentional with my day, and over the weeks has shifted my perspective for the better as my brain sees more and more wins where there used to be obstacles. Gratitude truly opens doors. I absolutely love
mm,
waking up in the morning and automatically considering whose life I may be brightening and why, simply by being more precise with the language of gratitude for others. Giving others a real, concrete why has come back to me in unexpected ways that have even generated business opportunities. I can breathe easier and relax because I'm more often catching myself thinking about who I can connect with and how I can enhance the quality of conversation and connection. Thank you, Kevin. These challenges are so helpful, and I'm already looking forward to the next one. My advice is to keep going. Gratitude is slaying the competition who focuses on tearing down. It's all about building up to generate wins in business and in life.
mm-hmm,
Hey,
mm.
that's somebody posted that 2 hours ago, Jonathan from Houston. And I'm like, wow, wow. I mean, just by thinking, who am I going to express gratitude for today?
Yeah.
They're happier and healthier. The other, so that's don'twaittothank.com. You can also go to letsgrowgratitude.com, letsgrowgratitude.com, and join us there for our 5-day fast start. This is the beginner's guide to growing gratitude. And it's a 5-day drip course. You get a lesson a day for
Mm-hmm.
5 days. And what does it do? It walks you into gratitude and it teaches you the fundamentals of pause, notice, express.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Both of those are gifts, right? No charge to participate in either of those.
Fantastic, Kevin. Thank you for mentioning it. I know many people will want to be involved with that, undoubtedly, and that's going to be opportune for many of our listeners. I'll trust myself as well. Myself
Oh,
as well.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
What a joy to join you today, Michael, Dr. Turner, and you
Mm-hmm.
listening. Thanks for allowing us to be part of. Hopefully, there's something manna that you're picking up and that is nourishing your soul and your mind, and that
Mm-hmm.
even courses into your body today, right? As you
Mm-hmm.
embrace and express gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kevin. Fantastic way to end it. I agree to say amen to that. I hope you have a fantastic day out there, listener, wherever you're at today, and you realize a bit about all that's good around you, that you'll have eyes to see it and be grateful for it. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all for tuning in today, listening. We'll be back in action with another episode soon. And until then, be blessed.